But we are very excited to introduce Julie Wells, who is the Director of Program Development at Give an Hour. And Julie is here to tell us a little bit more about Give an Hour and what they do. They are a national nonprofit committed to providing accessible, evidence-based mental health support to those affected by trauma. They were established in 2005, and they offer customized interventions to create connection and build resilience. They empower individuals to lead their healing journeys, to achieve long-lasting emotional well-being through a variety of different resources and ways that they do this, including peer support groups and lived experience. And they also have resources for mental health providers and direct service providers. So we're just really excited for Julie to be here with us today. So with that said, Julie, I will pass it to you. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Great. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you all today. Before I jump into the presentation, I just wanted to definitely do a little bit of housekeeping and then give you a little bit of a context about who I am before I start launching into Give an Hour. So absolutely, for sure, do whatever you need to do during this time. I appreciate when people are on screen, but I also know I appreciate when people give me permission to not be on screen. So do what feels right for you. I'm going to talk my talk and do my thing, and however it feels best for you to take this information in, please feel free to do that. I'm challenged when I'm presenting in terms of trying to keep up with the chat. So I've given Nikki permission to, if you pop something in and it's a clarification about something that we're talking about right there in the moment, I've given Nikki permission just to interrupt me, and then we can come back to that. But otherwise, I will just get through the basic information, and then we'll save time at the end to have a deeper discussion, or maybe ask questions about how the organization that you're with or who you're representing, what the connection might be between Give an Hour and the work that you're doing. I'm happy to talk about what those intersections might look like. Because Give an Hour is a comprehensive organization. We do a lot of different things for a lot of different populations. And because we customize everything, it can sometimes be hard when people just are looking for like an off the shelf, very easy, I do A, B, C, and D. We don't really function that way. And it's one of the reasons I love this organization. So if something is not clear to you about, like, I heard you say this, but I didn't really understand like where that would fit in with my organization, by all means, ask me those specific questions. So I have been with Give an Hour on and off for about 2 years now. I was called in about a year and a half ago, maybe more now, maybe 2 years ago, to do a deep dive in the work we had done around mass violence in California and in Las Vegas, specifically around how peer support had been a really effective tool in the healing of folks who had experienced mass violence, either as a loved one of someone or as a survivor of a specific incident. So that was a fantastic, like 3-month deep dive that I did in peer support at the individual level and at the group level. So I've spent a good bit of time understanding why we focus on that. And then I came back and did a really deep dive into our rare disease work. And so I'll be happy if anyone has any connection to that work and wants to talk more deeply about that. I love that part of our population. And then came on this fall to oversee all of our projects and all of our populations. But before this, did 30 years in community-based work. So my entire career has been in the nonprofit sector. I completely understand all the aspects, all the beautiful things that come from this work and all of the challenges that come from this work. So I always feel like it's important for folks to understand that, where right now we have a very broad intervention scope of work that I very much appreciate those of you who are hyper-focused in one community, one population, and I've done that work for quite some time. My heart center sits with young people, so it's a piece of this work that I miss very deeply. Okay, So that feels like now we know each other a little bit better. So let me share my screen. I'll walk you through who we are as an organization, and then we'll think about what that means to you and the people that you care about. Okay. Good to go, Nikki. You can see the screen okay still?
Yes, we can see it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much. So let's jump in. Here we go. So um, Given Hour has some pretty audacious goals for ourselves as an organization. And I'm gonna give you a little more historical context to how we got started, but currently we are aiming to be the #1 mental health social impact organization in our country over the next few years. Our goals are to impact 8 million individuals and have amassed 50,000 volunteers who are focused on supporting not only their own mental health, but the mental health of others. So we believe very deeply in the resilient individual and the resilient community. And we have continued to expand how we approach mental health because we know that there will never be a mental health solution that is based on the backs of mental health clinicians in this country. There's 52 million people living with a mental health condition in the US, and we have less than 600,000 licensed mental health providers. So and then depending on where you are in the country, if you're urban or rural, that availability to find a clinician, even if you have the financial means and the access to do so, is going to always be incredibly limited. And then for those of you who have gone through your own mental health journey or your own type of trauma, you know the challenge that it can be, even if you have resources, even if you have mental health providers within your community, you know how difficult it is to find the right fit for you, someone who understands that particular trauma that you might have experienced. So we're never going to solve it with mental health clinicians, and therefore we continue to look for ways to democratize mental health. So we really focus everything we do, and you'll feel this as you are an individual who comes to us for support, or you will feel this as an organization who comes to us looking for some type of partnership and collaboration, that we're very focused on self-awareness, self-care, and self-advocacy. We are guided by the voices of the people that we help walk alongside. And so we believe that everyone has the capacity to work on their mental health, and we want to show people how they can do that no matter where they live or what resources they have access to. So what I think is so special about us, but again, can be really confusing to folks who are looking for more of a transactional experience with an organization, is that we don't start any work until we listen to what the actual customers want. So we will oftentimes get called, let's say we get called by Montgomery County in Maryland. And they'll say, hey, we want peer support groups for folks who are coming out of the criminal justice system. We don't have enough mental health providers. We know they've got some mental health issues. We like that peer support model because it feels cheap and accessible. We want to stand those up, and here's some money to do that. We say, lovely, that's wonderful. Thank you for caring about this individual population so deeply. We need to talk to them. So we hear that you've already identified a solution to what you think is the most sustainable practice within your community, but we're not of the vein where we're going to build it and hope people come. We want to build what people have actually asked for. So anytime we engage, if an organization reaches out, we're going to always take that moment to do listening. Most recently, we've done that kind of in two parts. When we're working with organizations, we will ask the folks who have contacted us to lift up a few staff members that we can have one-on-one conversations with, to hear about their perspectives of what's going on with either their client base or their community specifically. And we will do a larger survey to a group of employees or a community group. And then we take both of those pieces of information, come back to an organization or a community and say, here's what we heard, and here's what we think we have that we can offer that might support you. and sometimes there's changes that people need to make that we don't have the capacity to help them make. So you guys know, because you're working on the front lines, like a lot of times issues when we talk about mental health that arise for organizations are around caseloads, resources, right? Like we pay. There's, we as an outside organization, I can't come in and change your policy, your procedure, or your culture. But what I can do is help elevate a conversation and provide some more training and skills, and some targeted solutions to some of the problems around burnout, for instance, or compassion fatigue, or how to build healthy boundaries. So that listening part really informs how we show up. And then when we do start working with an individual or an organization, then we really are doing this constant feedback loop with data and evaluation. And I know everybody says that because that's what funders want us to say that we do. I can tell you again, after doing this work for over 30 years, that we are led by that information. We really truly are. We had an instance recently where we had surveyed a group of volunteers connected to us, and we had a whole range of ideas of things we wanted to do with them, and they validated another idea. And so we changed our entire strategic plan around what it was that people said that they actually needed. So I know I'm really honing in on this, but working with Given Hour as an organization is really a very relationship-based experience. And so I want to make sure that as you think about what problems we might be able to help you address within your organization, and we'll talk about the individual as well, that you understand that it really is a process, and we take our time. So in terms of populations that we pay attention to, so almost 20 years ago now, Given Hour was actually created as a shadow network of providers that served military personnel and their loved ones. It was right after all of the terror that was happening within our country. Military personnel, first responders, were overwhelmed. And what we found specifically with the military and their loved ones was that they had a lot of resources to behavioral health, but they did not feel safe to take advantage of those resources. They had some very real concerns about how their mental health would be viewed, if that information was confidential, if it was going to affect their ability to have security clearance or be able to move up in rank. And so in response to that, we went out and created a clinician network who gave 1 hour a week for a year, that they would see a military individual or their loved one who contacted our organization and said, I need some support. We created a mechanism for taking care of mental health providers along the way and incentivizing, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But the process was simple. You reached out to us. We said, where are you living? What are your core issues? Let us help you find a clinician that can see you. And we've continued to serve both the military and their loved ones and continue to have a clinician network. And again, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what that looks like. But since that time, we've expanded out, continuing to pay attention to populations who we name as the 15% of individuals impacted by human-made trauma that require some type of higher level of understanding about that unique experience. And so we focus on the rare disease community, as I had commented before. I get really excited thinking about expanding out to medical trauma at some point in time too, because I myself have had medical trauma and understand like there are very real nuance to that type of trauma when you're looking for care. And then we focus also on areas of violence and crime. As you heard me say earlier, we pay attention to people who've experienced mass violence. Again, even the nuances between being a victim of a mass violence attack versus just a gun violence attack. Both are horrendous, but they play out very differently. And so we help the communities who have experienced it, what other communities have gone through, what they've needed in that moment right after 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years later, what are the supports that they need. And then we also pay attention to some interpersonal violence, and particularly in the DC area, we've been invited to come in and extend their bandwidth to work with individuals who have experienced that type of interpersonal violence, which isn't just domestic violence in the way that you think about it. It can be, again, some type of a crime against your person or your property that has left you feeling unsafe, or having a difficult time managing your emotions. And then we pay a lot of attention to workforce. This has been something we've leaned into for the last 2 years, particularly workforces that are taking care of other people. So we've done work in the aging community. If you follow trends around who's taking care of older adults, the turnover rate is atrocious right now for frontline workers who are taking care of our aging population. And so we are hyper-focused with some aging population organizations around how do we give them the supports that they need so that they can continue to support the population that we need them to support. So we also do that with helping companies understand, again, the nuanced needs of the military population and how you create a space and place for them, as well as caregivers across all types of categories. Caregiver work shows up in a lot of what we do as well. All right, so in terms of kind of the overall scope of what we do, there are opportunities again to go on an individual journey or an organizational journey. We have workshops that we hold that help upskill folks on their own ability to care for their mental health, as well as their ability to help others take care of their mental health. Whenever we're doing these listening sessions, as I've talked about, we are always, or even peer support groups, we're always listening very carefully to some type of nuance to information that people aren't able to find. So we create these really customized mental health tools and resources. So for instance, in the financial fraud space, which we also work in, understood after we spent about a year doing a journey map of what the experience of financial fraud feels like for someone, that people do not seek support because guilt and shame are at the core of their emotional response to being victimized. And so we created resources and tools that really name that very specifically in an effort to not only help mental health professionals who are working with these individuals, but also their families and their loved ones. The number one risk that we see in financial fraud is re-victimization. It feels crazy, but it's very similar to domestic violence. Like, you've had it happen once, you're very open to it happening to you again, because you haven't done the healing that you need to do or created new dynamics around getting your needs met or protecting yourself. And so financial fraud was one of those spaces where we really understood we needed to create the tools to help people understand that guilt and shame, or we weren't going to make any headway in terms of helping people get support. We still do have this fantastic network of over 4,000 providers that provide one-on-one counseling. And they, right now, the way that those individuals show up, they still, to join our network, they still dedicate 1 hour per week for a year to see a client that they receive through Give an Hour at no charge. But many of our providers end up seeing several clients, because once we make that connection to them, then they can also, if someone comes to us and just can't find the right provider, but they have insurance, we can connect them with a provider that has the skills that they need. And then that provider can take their insurance and see them, or sliding scale. So it's not just within our network. We, have the capacity of how many clinicians we have. Those clinicians can oftentimes see many more individuals. They just agree to do one completely pro bono with us per year. And then, as I alluded to, we believe very, very strongly in peer-led support groups, and also peer support on a one-on-one individual basis. We believe in this because we believe that people with lived experience, it's can be part of their healing journey to help others. We also believe that people with lived experience can speak to the nuances to their peers in ways that oftentimes clinicians cannot. We love the fact that it is a low-cost intervention that is also very sustainable. I've seen tremendous amount of impact in peer-led support groups, particularly in the military and the rare disease space, where just being in regular conversations with folks who have had similar experiences has been an anchor for those individuals in terms of just dealing with day-to-day life. We'll go through a few more slides about what peer support looks like, but I do want to just note that we stand up our own peer support groups for all of the populations that we serve, but a lot of times I spend a lot of my time helping other organizations stand up peer support for themselves. So even if you work with a population that you don't see clearly identified here, for instance, maybe you
Julie,
work with young parents. Yes. Yes.
sorry to interrupt.
Are
We're
you
getting a
losing
little
me?
bit of a lag. Yeah,
Okay. I'm not sure how to make it better, but I can turn my camera off. Would that help?
I'm not sure. We could try it.
Let's try. Stop video. There we go. Let's see.
That seems better. Thank you.
Okay. Great. I was saying that even if you do not see your population represented in the populations we pay attention to, we can still come in and help you develop a peer support program for whatever population you serve. We've done that with young parents. We've continued to move into reentry work. We're doing a lot of work in Maryland around that. So any population that has similar lived experience can be supported through peer support. Now, there's been a lot of talk about peer support and peer support certification across the country over the last couple of years. And there's been a lot of energy, particularly when talking about recovery from substance abuse or support for those who have mental illness. That's a different level of peer support than what we're currently helping people manage. If your particular state, and I don't know what it looks like in Georgia, honestly, sorry about that, but I know like in North Carolina where I live, like our local community college has a peer support certification program. There's a lot of companies that have popped up that help people use their experience to diversify their income stream, basically, and be able to help other people. All of that work is fantastic. But the work that we're talking about is less formalized than that type of legal certification, though oftentimes, at least in our peer support groups, we are paying facilitators. We are paying our facilitators and we are offering clinical supervision to them. So if you've heard a lot about peer support, I just want to help you understand how we're a little bit different there. And then, sorry, I can't move my screen. I can't move y'all off of it. We also have a wellness ambassador program, which allows any individual who wants to upskill themselves in mental health to be better for themselves, as well as better for their communities. That's an absolutely free intervention. We just finished off a fantastic online self-paced training. I think that this is such an important tool for, say, like faith-based organizations who feel like they want to lean into doing a little bit more intentional support around mental health for their congregation or their parishioners. This doesn't need to be they don't need to go through an entire mental health first aid training necessarily, right? Or they don't need to go and get certified as a peer supporter, but what they need to do is understand how to have conversations with folks, what to look for, what to do when you're concerned. And the Wellness Ambassador program allows folks to get all of that information for free in a pace and place that works for them. So there's a lot more information about that on our website if you're interested. Referring back to these psychoeducational tools and resources for support for the mental well-being, all of these, again, available right on our website. People can scour through the tools that we have up there, print those for free. And then if there is something that you're looking for that you're having a hard time finding, then you can always reach out to us and ask if it's something that we've developed and we just don't have posted, or if it's something that's in development. We're happy to help you with that. A little bit more about being a wellness ambassador. Again, this moves us towards our 50,000 volunteer goal. We would like to encourage every individual who has received some type of mental health support in the past that's been helpful to them to become a wellness ambassador as a way to boost the general mental health tools and knowledge of a community. So we've taken entire boards of directors through this training collectively. We've taken companies through this training where maybe they want to identify somebody in every department to be a wellness ambassador. We've taken young people through this programming who have emerging interest in wellness ambassadors in mental health, but just maybe don't have some of the formal language to talk about it beyond what maybe they've resourced through social media. And we're hoping that through helping people identify as a wellness ambassador, they become a first place of contact for folks who feel like they need to have a mental health conversation with someone to figure out what they need to do next in order to either become have a fuller life that's not loaded with so many of the stressors that they're experiencing, or someone that could help them walk the path to finding a clinician if that's what they need. All right, trained peer supporters. We've talked about this, but as I said before, I am obsessed with this because I worked with in community-based nonprofits. Everybody I worked with needed mental health support. I never, I had like 3 clinicians who I could call and beg to maybe take somebody for me because I'm like, this kid's they really like, they can make it happen. They're getting ready to make this next step, but they're going to need to work through some of this stuff first. There just was never enough support that I could find on the ground. So again, if I could go back into my community, if I went back into my community and reconvened with all of the nonprofits that I worked with, this would be the thing that I probably advocated for the most. How do we take the individuals who we are serving, find the individual who is furthest on their journey, make sure that we give them the right training and supports that they need, and help us build what happens organically anyway. People talk to each other and support each other in organic ways. This is not a new concept. This is how people have survived the lack of available clinicians throughout their life. But how do we create a little bit of structure around it so it becomes not only a little more predictable in that we're going to go deeper in a conversation at this moment, in this place, in this space and time, but also make sure that those facilitators who kind of naturally emerge in every population also don't experience vicarious trauma. They themselves don't start carrying a weight that's too big, or they themselves don't become problem solvers for everyone who comes to them with issues. And that is really important. I find as I'm training peer supporters over and over and over again, I have to help those facilitators reconceptualize themselves as not the solver of the problem, that they are literally there to be a sounding board and to be an encourager. And I think that I like the structure of peer support because it helps those individuals who want to help others do it with a few more compassionate boundaries. I referred kind of loosely to our Help the Helpers program. We are really focused again on making sure that populations that support others have the supports that they need as well. And so sometimes that's a really clear population of, people that are doing direct line community-based work, but also it's sometimes peripheral people that you don't ever think about as being a source of mental health support for many others. So if you think about in the school building, I think we all know like that front desk person is key, or that sometimes that SRO, or sometimes that bus driver, or that coach. And none of these people are necessarily getting any type of structured mental health training because it's not part of their natural job description, but they're consistently engaging with other people's mental health needs. And so again, Help the Helpers is a way for us to help lift up some of the skills that folks need who didn't necessarily just sign up to be in some type of social worker role, but who inevitably end up in those conversations. I've seen this be very, very powerful for a lot of organizations. And then again, around our mental health provider network, we currently have providers in all 50 states. We have over 4,000 mental health providers. People can join our network as either fully licensed or non-licensed, and we actually are launching an opportunity for graduate students to join us this fall. And we are working to get mental health providers, instead of dedicating an hour of time to see a client, to dedicate an hour of time to do supervision. We know that we need to help our graduate students get the clinical hours that they need. But any of you that have been through that process know that it is terribly difficult to find supervision and terribly expensive. One of the benefits that our mental health providers have as they join our network is to be supported through not only having a network of other clinicians, but we are also constantly upskilling our folks in the areas that we see gaps within their communities. We give up to 15 hours of free CEU credits, trainings to our mental health provider network. We are hosting demo days where companies that are geared towards mental health clinicians, whether that's payroll systems or insurance companies or other training institutes. We create demo days so that our mental health professionals can come and learn what they want to learn without being targeted directly by those companies. And then we hold opportunities for our mental health providers to give us direct feedback too. So they're constantly joining networking groups or a part of our advisory committee so that we can hear more directly about what they might need. And then this last slide is just talking about ways that we can build together, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I think that's going to be a little bit self-evident. I'm going to hold this slide up for just a moment. If you are interested in staying connected to us, I encourage you just to QR code it, and you can sign up for our newsletter so that you can see all of the things that are happening. I would also encourage you to give a moment at our website. On our homepage, there's a YouTube video that sits on that front page. And if you look at it, it looks 7 minutes long. And if you're me, I'd be like, okay, 7 minutes is too long. However, I can't say enough good things. It is a comprehensive overview that was done for us by the Stand Together Foundation, where we're a Catalyst Impact partner that really breaks down the shift that we need to make in addressing mental health across our country if we're going to impact more folks than we are in the traditional method. So I encourage you to take an extra 7 minutes. I didn't want to take your time here making you watch it, but I encourage you to do so.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Julie.
Yes.
We do have one question in the chat. So we have 10 minutes left. So folks can either put a question or a discussion point in the chat, or feel free to come off of mute. Andrea asked if you could talk briefly about navigating like telehealth regulations across states, or if you have to match individuals with clinicians that are already in the same state, or kind of how that works.
Yeah, we match right now with clinicians within the same state. Now we know that, we stay abreast of the efforts to do cross-state licensure, and like we have a really close relationship with the American Counseling Association. So as they kind of lead those conversations, we're joining into that. But yeah, right now we help people nuance what's available within their state.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? Feel free to come off mute. You don't have to raise your hand, but you can. And I put the links to your website, Julie, as you were kind of talking about things. So there's a
Thank
bunch
you.
of resources in the chat for you all.
I'll just follow up. Thank you for answering my question. That I'm helping run a workforce initiative in Georgia, and even the clinicians that are working in Georgia, they don't always have access to their own mental health services through their employer who
Yep.
is providing mental health services.
Yep.
So I just appreciate that you've identified that gap, and hope to learn more in the future.
Thank you. This is actually the year of the provider for us. Like, we named our year just 100% focused on thinking about lifting up the profession and thinking about their needs. And, I was at the ACA conference this year in New Orleans and talked to over 100 providers in 2 days about their needs. And what people got most excited about from us was a lot of people wanted to volunteer, but if they didn't do it in a structured way, they got inundated with requests. So they loved the idea of like, oh, I do want to give, but I don't want to open the floodgates in my community. So I could just be a partner with Give an Hour. And then that fulfills kind of my desire and my value. That was important. The second was, particularly people that were working as solo clinicians or in rural communities, they felt completely disconnected from a community. And so they love being a part of our community because they feel like they're a part of basically like a national practice. They get resources, they have conversations, they get invited to things. They love that aspect. And then so much excitement about this graduate student work that we're going to be releasing, just these grad students. And we're so excited because we're like, oh, we can give them the CEU credit in the populations that we want them to upskill in. And it might not be where they stay their focus, right? But we're trying to like get more people to think about rare disease, more people to understand the military community, more people to understand mass violence. So it serves our need and it serves their need of finding clients, hopefully figuring out the supervision piece. So it really is a very symbiotic relationship between us and our providers. And yeah, I highly encourage you all to share this with the provider networks that you know as well. Andrea, my PM, like I can't even ask. My staff are so fantastic. I should say that too. If people get to our door, sometimes it's hard getting people to your door. Y'all know that you're doing community work, but when people get to our door, I put it on my name. We take the best care of people. All of us are seasoned professionals. We didn't believe in what we were doing and the way we would do it. We can go find a job making the same money somewhere else, like we are all here because we've all done work in other places that have not been successful for people. And impact is the beginning and the end of what I care about personally. And so, because I've seen so much money wasted in 30 years of nonprofits on all kinds of things that didn't really trickle down to the people. So when people come to us, whether it's a provider who we see as a customer or a client who we see as a customer, we just wrap ourselves around them and really walk them through. So I know sometimes it's hard to make referrals to organizations, but I just want to reinforce that I want you to feel confident about that to the extent that you can trust someone that you just met.
I have a question. It looks like there is a peer support training next Thursday. Are you still accepting registrants for that?
We are, yep. And Molly is our program manager for that. Yes, we hold general peer support trainings that are open for free to the community. This will be the last of our kind of old iteration, which is a 4-hour virtual experience. After June, we're actually pausing in July, and in August, we're going to be relaunching with the first part of peer support training is actually going to be that wellness ambassador training that you can do online. And then we'll follow it up with 2 hours of in-person. So if you're interested, but you don't want to do 4 hours online, I don't want to do 4 hours online, which is why we're changing it. Then I would say just stay connected, get on our newsletter because you'll see that stuff that's coming, and then join us in August. But yes, if you've got the time and the energy and you're eager, then by all means, we're still standing that up.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And I'll be sure to share out that information to our network. That would be a fantastic program for a lot of the community members that you all serve. So
Absolutely.
definitely share that.
And again, I just, highly encourage people to go to our website, go to the Wellness Ambassador Journey. That on-demand training is fantastic. It's such a great starting point for folks who just need to like kind of get their toes wet and level set a little bit. And again, it's those people that are in these natural helping roles. Maybe that's not their paid position, but they're doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have and so well intentioned. And so this kind of helps like bring them back into the fold a little bit so that the ways that they're helping people are the most helpful that they can be.
Absolutely. Anyone else have any questions? We still have a few minutes.
I have another question, but I don't want to keep asking them if other people have them.
Go
So
for it.
I'll just pause just to make sure nobody else wants. Okay. So our group in Middle Georgia has been talking a long time about creating a neighborhood-based wellness ambassador program.
Oh, nice.
Have you, it's kind of been like on our list of to-dos for 4 years for our grant, and we never have quite gotten to it. But basically placing wellness ambassadors within neighborhood communities that are more impacted by violence
Yep.
and experience more trauma. Is that something that y'all have ever done, or do you think that the wellness ambassador training would fit with a community level, just like
Absolutely.
neighborhood group? Would it like fit
Absolutely. It,
culturally and all of that? Would it like, is the training really? Sometimes trainings can be, we try to like fit with the everyday person, but
yes.
it doesn't. So
I totally get that. So again, like myself and the program manager, Ashley, who oversees the Wellness Ambassador, as well as our clients, both came directly from community work. And so our lens is very sharp on that. Like, what are we lifting up? How does it hit? The suggestions we're giving, how realistic are those for people? And so this wellness ambassador training is not a prescription for like, I'm so over the like self-care stuff, right? Like, like go take a, go breathe, go take a walk. All that stuff is great and true, 100,000%. But again, if I'm taking care of, if I'm dealing with like severe PTSD or moral injury from my flashbacks from my military work, like, please don't tell me just to like take a deep breath. Like, this is a little bit more intense than that. So I would encourage you, Andrew, just to like do it yourself. Go through our wellness ambassador thing yourself. See how it hits, have 2 or 3 other people. It's no cost to you. See how it hits. And if you feel like, you know what, I loved 90% of this, or like, what's really popping in our community is this issue. And it would be nice to have like all of this plus something. Come back to us and then we can make it what you need it to be. I mean, again, doing community-based work, your challenge is to make that happen. You got to identify the right people. You got to figure out the training, what's in the training, who's going to be the training. How do I get that? Do people do it in person? Do I have to feed people as they come? I know like all that stuff you got to do to make that happen. So I would say, evaluate if this is a tool you can build from. And then, give us a call and then we can figure out like how much modification do we need to make. But if it works, it's open source. We would love to work with you because we'd like to track how this rolls out, right? And like how it's impacting and get feedback because we're constantly trying to make improvements. But yeah, see what it can do in its form currently, and then we can go from there.
Julie, thanks for this. It's really great information. So there's a Pierce, I saw that there's one next week, or the following week. I can't remember which next week, right? So, how do we find out about future?
Yep. Just going again, signing up for our newsletter is going to be your constant source. You're going to get something from us. twice a month. You get one that's like the full newsletter that kind of gives you like, our CEO was on this podcast and, you know, we got a new partnership with this person, kind of the high level stuff. And then you'll have one that comes middle of the month that's more engagement level, right? So it's like, what's new in wellness, what's happening with peer support, what's going on with our training and tools. So that just covers all your bases. You're going to see everything. I know I told Nikki, like, I love the Resilient Georgia newsletter so much. It like is such a fantastic resource. So I'm really cognizant about how people use our resources too. So if you go on the newsletter and you're like, I don't get what I need from it, give me that feedback too.
And I just posted the link where you can sign up for the newsletter. Julie also posted her email in the chat, so feel free to reach out for any further information or to ask how to get involved. Any other final questions? I know we're over our time, but just wanted to give everybody an opportunity. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Julie, for being here with us today and taking time out of
Yeah.
your busy schedule. Thank you to
course.
everybody who showed up and also took time out of their lunch hour to be here today. This is recorded and we will put it on the website, and we will share resources as well in a future Monday memo. But thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.